Live streaming is on.
And we have begun. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Talk the Plank, the United States Pirate Party's official podcast, number one in the world. And tonight we are joined by Marcin. Is it Jakubowski?
Jakubowski in Polish, if you want to say it the Polish way.
Jakubowski?
Mm-hmm.
Marcin Jakubowski from Open Source Ecology. I don't want to take up much of your time. I would like to give the floor to you if you could. Well, first of all, before I go any further, Dustin, that's of the DMV Pirate Party. Need I, lest I forget you, Dustin. In fact, could you give, gentlemen, I've done enough talking. And if you would like to introduce yourselves, we can get this show on the road.
Dustin, start.
Okay. My name is Dustin Betts from. I live in Virginia. Basically a random nerd who does software engineering professionally and has some physics and electrical engineering background from college. Marcin?
Okay, so my name is Marcin. So I run Open Source Ecology. So we're known for the Global Village construction set, the 50 different industrial machines that it takes for modern life to exist. Now, recent endeavor is actually starting a school, so that's the latest on our side. So, but tell me a little introduction on the Pirate Party and the podcast and all that. Can you guys can you tell me a little more? Like, what would you like to cover today? Because we can go in a lot of different directions.
Yeah. So the Pirate Party has largely, it came into existence at around the same time as open source and had a lot of the same ideologies as the open source movement and kind of evolved at around the same time. So it explicitly supports open source, moving towards an open source economy, also radical transparency and direct democracy methods, digitalization of accountability and democratic methods, stuff like that.
How do you define open source economy in your plank?
So one of our people basically just knew about it and told us about it. They had volunteered with Open Source Ecology at one point, from what they had said, Morgan. And that's how we came to know about it, basically. They had told us.
Sorry, did I say open source ecology? I meant to ask open source economy. What is your, because I like that word. I use that word a lot of times. You just used it. Tell me what you mean by that, because I actually don't hear a lot of people using that word.
Okay. I was kind of, I kind of just made it up to some extent, but I'm pretty sure anyone who's trying to make things around open source and make economic things around open source would use the same term. It's like the obvious way to phrase it, I guess. But yeah, when I say that, what I mean more so is trying to make things oriented around local businesses using open source that many people have built out. There's tons of open source communities around the world. All of them have built things. If you, with intention, try to make a type of economy out of only open source things, then your economy, if it's running purely on those things, is an open source economy, right?
Yep. So do you use the word, invoke an open source economy thing, the whole thing about industrial economy, patents, trade secrets, all that, advanced technologies? Is that what are you guys, do you guys use that language in terms of, okay, we're actually going to open source the technosphere? Hey, how about that? We say that quite explicitly. So we work on the Global Village construction set, the 50 different industrial machines, but that's the step right now. But actually the goal by 2036, about 8 years, we've got goals to open source the entire economy, spaceships and rocket ships, microchips, everything, because that's efficiency, that's just the natural evolution of things, that just effective development leads to open source and the open source economy in our world.
Right. I would absolutely agree with that.
Yep.
And it allows people to not be controlled to some extent. Helps break down monopolization of resources and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I guess another thing to consider is resources, right? So hopefully you would be able to develop open source that specifically is made in a way that it empowers local economies that are not reliant on international trade routes. That way it can't be circumvented in another way, and they can't enforce monopolization through other means. Hopefully, I guess. Open source kind of has to be built with an intention. Well, it doesn't have to be, but it would ideally be built with an intention to allow anyone to be able to use it. Because if you can make something open source and say it's open source, but then if you make it in a way that's unrealistic for anyone to ever use, it doesn't really matter that much that it's open source, because only someone extremely wealthy could use it anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. So in this interview, what kind of questions, like, what do you want to get out of the interview? Like, what are some of the common grounds and things that are most compelling to you guys?
Yeah. So basically, we just wanted to talk to you, see like what kind of ways are you trying to work towards an open source economy, or what you're working towards most recently. What kind of things are you trying to find volunteers for? What kind of background are you looking for in terms of volunteers, and any help you need on things, or your community need on things, and then things you would look to help others in or have collaboration on, anything in that regards.
Yeah.
You have a lot more experience than any of us do on this stuff, so a little bit is like,
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the biggest challenge right now, so over the last couple of decades, we've been prototyping technology, starting with, I'm sure if you've seen the TED Talk, the concept of the Global Village Construction set, how it started with the tractor braking. I was trying to start a farm, a community, being quite disenchanted with where mainstream education was taking me. So I started a farm in Missouri. Then equipment broke, started developing our own. Decided that if we've got this problem, might as well solve it for everybody. It turns out to be a very common problem. It's just open source technology is a thing that's badly needed. Now, from that time, 2006, moving on to the 30 acres in Maysville, Missouri, prototyping a lot of things, never really getting to product releases until now, until basically this year, the house went up for sale. So one of the 50 machines in the system is the house as a living machine. So I'll call it a machine, but it's a full product release that now we're using to bootstrap the whole program, so we can build homes and then generate revenue to fund everything else. But the idea is that everything has to be something at a level, just like the Seed Eco Home, at a level where it meets or exceeds industry standards. It can be sold. It's a real product. It's commercially viable. It's something, not a one-off that somebody does in their garage, but something that you can start a business with and actually start impacting the economy. So that's the thing. So with that said, we're just starting the it's called the Future Builders Academy apprenticeship. Go to learn.opensourceecology.org if you want to take a look at that. But that's the current effort. That's to take all the knowledge that we've learned, all this construction set approach, collaborative open source development, and teach it to people so we can change the world. The basic business model is a swarm of 24 people who build the complete Seed Eco Home, about 1,400 square foot house, expandable modular home with ecological features. 5 days with 24 people. So that's actually 1,000 hours. That's a big feat. We do modular design to make it real, and we've demonstrated that it's feasible. We just sold the first house, and we see the economics in there. It's amazing. But with that, we can now fund and absorb people into the operation so that we can give this effort the amount of effort that it really requires. Because the numbers are actually quite formidable in terms of any serious development. I mean, if you talk about this kernel of civilization, the key technologies, that's quite a bit. And the real deal is, I mean, like $50 million to get there. We're probably like $3 or $4 million over the last 2 decades. I mean, that's basically a shoestring budget, but that's how we've been going. And now we can actually fund it. So funded by bootstrap production. And that's the idea with which we're taking the work, the Future Builders Academy, learning how to learn, learning how to build just about anything, learning how to be a human, a 4-year immersion program. That's where we're at, to teach people to build, to design, build, engineer anything that we have done so far, and much more actually, because it's about releasing all the 50 tools as commercially viable products. So we've prototyped about 17 or 20 of them, about 20 or so. But there's a huge difference between a prototype and an actual product release. Something that you make it and it's your first beta release or whatever that you can use, but nobody else can. Well, the next step is to take it to full release. But those steps takes as much effort to get that last 1 or few percent as it takes to get to that 99%. So that's where we're at right now. But starting the Future Builders Academy, that's where we're at. So the main need is, now that we've got the ability to design and build, to teach people, to fund, now it's a question of bodies, people signing up to the program. And the basic way it works is cohorts of 24. And what we'd like to do is then allocate each cohort to one of the development projects. So, for example, with the Seed Eco Home, maybe we do the full product release of the tractor, the skid steer, or brick press, or sawmill. So but with a crew of 24, yeah, you can talk about perhaps a full product release, maybe like on a time cycle of a year or a few years, depending where people are, the people who are joining the program. If they're young people, they don't have much experience, it's going to be slow going. But develop a program where cohorts of 24 are allocated to each of the machines. So it's about getting a lot of people on board and building up the infrastructure and facility to do all of that. So the first goal is by March. We're still aiming by March to recruit about 24 people. We just had, I don't know if you guys have seen the viral video on how I found true freedom, the thing I talked about, the skid steer and things like that. We have an audience on some of the social media now. Now we can publicize and produce an irresistible offer for how do people want to join this program. Well, so we're scholarshiping a lot of people. We're giving a stipend, and then get a load of this. We'll finish the program. We'll build you a house for free.
Hey, that's great.
How do
and
we
it's
do
a
that?
great timing. We got a housing crisis, so
Yes, we
perfect time to market it.
Let me just tell you how. So how do we do that? Materials, they cost a lot. It's $40,000 per house. How do we do that? Well, if you have your compressed earth block press, your lumber mill, 3D printing, or concrete production, all this, hey, you're talking about drastic cutting of the cost. So you're near zero marginal cost.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All we need to do is teach people how, right?
Exactly. It's that. I mean, throughout the years, it's been, people come and go as a volunteer project, right? So that's the life cycle. People just come, kind of go through. But this requires long-term committed development, getting basically to the scale of Linux development when Linus first started his deal and got to a product within a few years. We've got to do that, but it's much harder. We're working with hardware, and we've got a bigger scope, which is the technosphere altogether. Yeah.
Now,
I know.
Marcin, I just wanted to ask you really quick.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, I did put the links to not only Open Source Ecology, but also learn.opensourceecology.org. So both are available in the description for anyone watching this or live or after the fact. But one thing with the Pirate Party that we always preach is that, we're your neighbors, and that the more local you get, the more localized your Pirate Party gets. And as I'm listening to this conversation, the first thing you said, or one of the first things you said, was how if I'm having this problem, surely many people are having this problem, or many people around me are having this problem. How do you feel the open source would impact your neighbors if we were to bring this door to door and say, this is how is this going to help you? How much of an impact is that going to have versus trying to reach as many people as possible, I suppose?
Starts. I think the answer to that one is it starts in our backyard. So that's why we're in the middle of nowhere, Missouri, and we have not succeeded unless our work pervades this community. So our tractors, homes everywhere, sustainable farms and micro factories and all that. If we haven't succeeded in actually doing that locally, then we have failed, because it's got to be applied anywhere. So the mark of our success would be, how many people are building homes around here? Well, we just sold one. We actually built two already here, and the idea is that uptake, so production or people building it themselves. Now, building themselves, yes, that's a great thing to do, but this is hard. So far, nobody has replicated any of our enterprise at this point, but it has to start locally. It has to be applied locally. Of course, you can leverage global talent to do that development, but then you appropriate it to every location. Does that kind of answer that?
Absolutely, I would say so. And again, I think that matches the spirit of the Pirate Party, where we preach that the changes you're going to feel are going to be felt most locally. And if you're saying you got to start locally, that starts in your backyard, you have to, I don't want to say means test it, but you almost have to prove it works to your neighbors before you prove it to anyone else. Yeah.
And a lot of times people have been coming from all over the world to our workshops and builds and things like that. The thing that was missing all the time for me, it's like, okay, for example, when we did the compressed earth block press, that was years ago, like 2008 or 10, and it was exciting. A lot of people interested in it, but then again, we moved on to other prototyping. Like we did a lot of prototyping. We never took the brick press, for example, to, okay, here's a viable enterprise, turnkey enterprise that you can do. Here's how you produce it. I mean, we've got a lot of, we're like, 90% or whatever. But the disappointing thing was that nobody took it up. I mean, there's like a dozen or so people that we know of, at least, that have built the brick press in different places, but nobody actually started a business, which is, why is that? It's like the nearest competitor to the kind of productivity we have cost $52,000. You can, if you build this yourself, you can build it for $5,000 in materials. So it's like, whoa! If you start a business, you sell it at $10K or whatever, and still make a good living. But yeah, none of that has happened. And I think the appreciation, the finding there is, well, you got to make it easy enough that people can adopt it at larger scale. The design has to be absolutely perfected and finished, and things like that. But that's hard work.
Yeah. And do you know the Voron open source community?
Yeah, absolutely.
I like their, well, I guess this might be more so because I haven't been in enough hardware stuff yet, but I like the ideology of trying to keep everything as simple as possible, using as few different types of screws as possible, keeping things to a simple screw things together sort of way of building stuff. That a way of keeping it simple to do assembly, simple to make the parts for everything you can. Try to make it as easy as possible, like you said.
Absolutely. I don't get the impression that, I mean, compared to our work, I wouldn't say Voron is easy. some few things I've seen about is that, oh yeah, it takes forever to build. I mean, for us, we're saying, and we have done this, is build the 3D printer in one day. So we really optimize work to make it absolutely ridiculously simple. But yeah, I like it if Voron has that philosophy, and definitely they can continue doing that. For us, that's a big deal. Yeah, make it absolutely as easy as possible, and then create the whole product ecology where all the different parts there are used also in other machines, like 3D printing. Okay, so we 3D print some of the parts, obviously, for the 3D printer. But yeah.
Have you guys messed with doing like molds based on 3D printing, or seen if that's, I guess I've seen some stuff about that, trying to do 3D prints and then making molds and like doing mold nesting based on 3D prints to try and make metal parts.
Yeah,
more
haven't done it,
feasible?
but yeah, absolute great idea. Print, like for example, even in whether it's plastic or even clay or ceramic, print those molds, and then you've got complex metal parts that you can cast. Absolutely, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Especially if you automate that, and you can, if you take that to an advanced level, you literally have a powerful production capacity. So automate a lot of that process, like maybe have, say you make the mold that you pour the whatever, the plaster or whatever you do, have some automation in there where it's like click print, and oh yeah, it gets you that mold, and it even has a little induction furnace next to it, which it pours the hot metal into it automatically. Powerful idea, but now that is hard. That's like if you try to automate that whole tool chain, whoa, that's an amazing product. It's also, I can tell you, it would take a little bit of effort to get all those pieces together. It's inevitable that kind of stuff will become open source and highly accessible, especially when you talk about a product ecology kind of approach or a construction set approach, where a lot of different parts are shared between the different systems and things like that. So yeah, that's I do like that. I've thought about that, and it's like, yeah, definitely. Imagine we had, you design it in FreeCAD, right? Then you hit your automated export file, manufacturing file to your casting robot, and then you've got the 3D printing and straight metal by hitting return on your computer. Awesome, great idea.
Yeah. I guess the difficulty is like you have to basically do material science to make sure the mold actually comes out, because you have to do compensation between the different kinds of materials and stuff like that. So it's a lot more complicated than it seems like, than just printing something and hoping it comes out like the way you shaped it as a negative, right? But still,
Yeah.
it's feasible if you can.
I mean, the more steps you put into a process, like, I'm saying that is not easy. Like to hit print, and you've got a quality metal part, like especially steel, which is a very high temperature. Oh, that's not an easy project. It's a few years of development time. I mean, that's like a few $1 million of R&D.
Yeah. Have you messed with or seen any of the Sol Gel research?
Haven't, not so much. Haven't followed that. What's new there?
So this is, I think, more so aimed at like glass and ceramics and stuff like that. But basically, it's just a manufacturing method of basically optimizing the way you make the materials so that you can lower the temperatures down needed for making glass, ceramic, metals, stuff like that. Just the method of optimizing it enables lowering the temperature, basically. Basically using manipulation of like material properties at the nanoscales to enable making like just look up Sol Gel glass. I can't remember the stuff off the top of my head. It's been a minute.
Are you saying that there's any open source effort in there, or are you just bringing that up as an example of a good technology to open source?
I'm bringing it up as a good technology to open source. There are open source research papers about it. I don't think there are sufficient open source technologies around how to make it. But I would say it's something that would help with doing things because it lowers the temperature you need for making certain materials of things, or gives you an alternative set of materials that you can make more easily at like the temperatures of a hobby kiln, which significantly lowers the barrier, I think. That and geopolymer seems useful as well.
Geopolymer,
I've looked at a lot, because geopolymer, you don't, or at least to some extent, can formulate it in a way that allows you to like not like kind of use it like cement when making molds if you formulate it well. So geopolymer, sol gel, and then those are two, I think, really interesting materials. To make things more accessible to people.
We talk a lot about a lot of different practical things, like even pyrolysis of plastic for fuel. So we filter a lot of our work through the filter of, okay, here's how do we build homes cheaper, better, faster, and all that. So in the home building, fuel is a big deal. I mean, your skid steer or machines that you use, that's like the second highest operating expense of, or the first one for any kind of a heavy machine. So things like that, like for example, pyrolysis of plastic, it's a great one. Clean up the environment while making fuel, things like that. I liked, so you brought up the idea of the Millennium machines, of the full CNC router. That was a good find. I haven't heard about it. I haven't really looked a lot into all that's out there right now on the CNC front, but yeah, that's a good one. So fully capable mill for aluminum. That's awesome.
Yeah, those are always fun. Another interesting one, if you're into like full technosphere stuff, I saw, or some things that have come up more recently have been like RISC-V open architecture for chips, and then Skywater, which is open source production.
What Skywater?
So Sky 130 is the PDK for basically how to manufacture. I guess it's more so 2000s level chips, microchips. They don't have the manufacturing tools themselves open source, but basically everything down to the physics has been open sourced through Sky 130 and the tools paired with it. And RISC-V is a functional architecture that'll work for basically Ubuntu, and then basically what we were looking at more recently was Ubuntu with KDE Plasma being applied to RISC-V based on Sky 130 PDK. I think that would get you down to where you only need the manufacturing, which is a lot further than things were before.
130 nanometer is 2000s level microchips.
I think early 2000s, maybe.
What's Arduino? What's a microprocessor?
I can't say off my head.
.350 nanometers. So, between 350 and 65. So yeah, this is, so you're doing things like Arduinos. Yeah. I mean, do you know of anybody working actually on the hardware to manufacture semiconductors and microchips? Because I mean, RISC-V, that's architecture design. I know the tools for that are open source, but not the manufacturing. So what's the latest on any kind of manufacturing that exists out there?
I have not found any kind of manufacturing stuff personally. I've dabbled with attempts to figure out a way to even approach prototyping, but that's about the extent of it. We're nowhere near like having the capabilities to realistically be like, yes, this is totally a viable approach. I think probably more so we need to, or at least in my opinion, we need to increase the capabilities in terms of open source research architecture, in terms of software. and then
Mhm.
use that as a baseline to try and start making like open source manufacturing capabilities. 'Cause I
Open
think
source research architecture, meaning, what do you mean by that?
I mean, there's tons of open source software for simulation software out
Mhm.
there. Like you can find basically anything written in a Python library
Mhm.
you can imagine. But I guess for example, in FreeCAD, they have finite element method
Mhm.
to some extent, but it's not super robust to my understanding, and
Mhm.
it's not super easy. But something comparable to console level or beyond would be ideal, I guess. Something that can unify things from the level of like density functional theory to theorizing materials that you need that maybe don't exist, with going up to multi-scale, or sorry, I can't remember all the terminologies. But start from density functional theory, go up to multi-molecular physics, and go from there to finite element method level. And
Mhm.
then on top of finite element method level, go to rules of mixtures. And then try to like get those technologies working together better. There are people who work on research related to that, and there's plenty of open source about all of those things individually, but not
Mhm.
so much blending them together, which is
Mhm.
like a current research topic.
Mhm. Mhm.
But if we can kind of unify those simulation softwares and make it more seamless to simulate between them, then that would make it, I think, much more realistic for people in the open source community to approach making those machines.
So is there, like in a Pi party, is there any organized effort to develop open technology, like, or that's, not particularly? Or Dustin, are you actually like the founder, or this you started the party, or no? No, it's, who did that?
No, actually, so the pirate movement as a whole began in 2006
Mhm.
following the Pirate Bay raid. The pirate movement actually began January 1st in Sweden in 2006.
Mhm.
And then in June of 2006, the second ever pirate party, the United States Pirate Party, came into existence.
Okay.
So we have been around for 19 years, and we're approaching 20 next year.
Well, same as us, 2006, pretty much, yeah.
So we've been around. It hasn't been anything. Obviously, we're not any household name or anything like that. It's a grassroots movement, but it's a movement that has been chugging along. We do in our platform, more specifically, the platform on our website, uspirates.org/platform. We do promote culture and knowledge through copyright reform and fostering innovation through abolishing patents, which lends into open source. But I actually
Yeah.
don't believe the words open source, other than no, I could be wrong. I'm looking right at it. Regardless, that those are the two things that are mainly in the platform that we've kind of hounded on. Those were actually foundational to the party's founding.
Mhm. Mhm.
Since then, the party has grown a bit. We've gotten into more localized issues, foreign policy issues, but all of it with the idea of you talk about free and open technology, and I've tried to apply that to just the real world and say we promote a free and open culture.
Yeah.
That as of right now, we're working on another platform plank for clean water, and in which we refer to water as the commons.
Mhm.
So we try to apply that language to everyday life, and try to get people to see through a lens of open source.
Yeah.
Which it leads me into a question for you. What do you think is the next big leap with open source? Do you think it's going to be made in like what field? Would it be agriculture? Would it be housing? I know we discussed the
Hmm.
potential of printing steel beams, but what would you think would be the next big leap?
I mean, I think it's a cultural leap that people get fed up enough of the current system that they start appreciating collaborative open development more, because that kind of cultural shift is needed for any kind of adoption. So I can't really think of any particular technology. I don't believe technology changes. It's a social technology that's going to change things, and that's the collaborative singularity. There you go. That's the next step. Around the 30s or maybe 40s, as the technological singularity runs wild, we need to match that with the open and collaborative singularity, meaning people wake up to open collaboration or openness, sharing, all of those values as a norm that people practice, not just preach about, but practice. So I think it's a cultural shift that's common. Mm-hmm.
You know, today I was speaking with a family member, and they were saying, I can't believe people aren't on the streets about the housing crisis. And I said, it's harder for people to grasp something they've never had or something that they didn't lose physically that they once had. And with that being said, you know, people sometimes may not understand how devastating patents can be and how patents can really stifle innovation or block innovation. So in, you know, your project, I want to know, is there anything that you've seen, like, is there any instant where you've seen a patent directly block or hinder something that could have changed agriculture, fabrication, anything, technology? Was there an instant that you're like, you know, if this was only open source?
Actually, no, because I say that instance is the technosphere, meaning the whole paradigm, because everything suffers from exactly that, you know. For example, so I ended up buying a skid steer 3 months ago, 100 hours, already broke. Can you believe that? Brand new. So this is how I started this adventure. I ended up getting one because we're not manufacturing our own. We don't have people yet. So join the program, open source that skid steer and all that. That's the promise. I think the level of downward motion of society. I mean, it's persistent and to the point that people don't see it. That's the thing. I wouldn't point to any specific technology that is a culprit. In fact, I mean, you can, for example, photovoltaics, even though they're proprietary and to be open sourced, of course, I mean, they're ridiculously low cost, approaching zero marginal cost. So proprietary technologies also tend towards that zero marginal cost ideal, like Jeremy Rifkin's Zero Marginal Cost Society, the book. I mean, that's a classic on that. Been theorized decades ago, but it's not happening. Decades, maybe like about 2012. Zero Marginal Cost Society came about, I think, 2012 or so. That was like the heyday of open source, where there was hope that open source hardware is actually going to change the world. Then you got the maker bots and all the enclosures of everything left and right that was open, and now we're here. So it's a systemic thing, and we got to transcend that.
Of course, definitely. Okay, maybe a thought would be, what do you think some open source oriented local businesses might look like? Like if someone random wanted to start a local open source business, how would they start going about doing that? Just reach out and make connections to existing open source communities, ask them for permission to like do resale of them to get other people engaged?
Meaning an open source hardware business or software? Any or hardware?
Either.
Let's talk about hardware. Okay. Give me one single organization. Maybe Precious Plastic is there, but give me anything that you can start a meaningful, robust business on. I can only point to one. That's actually called open source ecology. We've got a house product that you can make 100K building one house and probably build a couple of those. You know the techniques. You can build a couple of these, make 200K right now. Download the plans, learn how to build it, start a business. That's the thing. And start creating zero marginal cost society, that the universal basic assets, infrastructure around that, meaning ways where you can access it at lower and lower cost to the point where you can actually say, oh, it's free. The promise of technology, right? That it goes literally like software to zero marginal cost. That's doable, but that means physical infrastructures that are simply accessible with powerful machines that You can do it. So look up the concept of universal basic assets. It's on our wiki. You guys heard of that? You heard of universal basic income?
Yeah.
That's the centralist way of doing universal basic income is just crumbs off the table. I'm saying universal basic assets, open source the infrastructures that actually produce. Then you're talking about a different paradigm of social security and prosperity for the world.
Absolutely.
Distributed world. Yeah.
The only, and here's the thing, there are some open source hardware projects out there, but I feel like they're all only partially open source to some extent. When you get down to it, there's still the microchip, which at some point definitely is manufacturing. There's like, I know Beagle V Fire is based on RISC V, and they sell like, basically they're just mini desktops based on RISC V. They're based in Michigan. And then OpenWRT sells open source routers. But those are the only two examples I can think of outside of open source ecology.
OpenWRT, do they have an open design that actually they release the blueprints for how you actually manufacture that? Because that's what we do. When I say name another one outside of OSC, I say precious plastic because they actually show you here is how you produce it exactly. And they also have some information on enterprise. I don't think selling artistic goods from plastic is a robust enterprise personally. I think a great gap in the precious plastic project is the lack of a 3D printer, which is a scalable, robust business model. But who besides our work is a question to the world here is doing documentation also on the enterprise side. Here are the numbers for how you run an enterprise, including operations and revenue models and all of that documented. And here, take it, do it. That's what we say. So that kind of thing is rare.
Yeah.
Now, tell me more about OpenWRT. Do they actually say, okay, here's the blueprints and we'll even help you get an enterprise started? Or because we call that distributive enterprise. It's an enterprise whose mission is to clone itself, to replicate it, to give it away to others so that everybody benefits, because we are the greediest person in that equation. If somebody else adopts it, they are contributing further to that. We benefit. It's just an abundance mindset. But like, for example, OpenWRT, do they have, do they actually encourage somebody to start an app? We use routers. We'll produce them if the plans are truly open, and production engineering, maybe there's some even open sourcing of that. Now, Lulzbot, the 3D printer company that sold to another person who was another company that is less idealistic about open source, Lulzbot was the poster child of that kind of distributive enterprise. I talked to the founder a bit, and we were talking about here's the layout, the production layout of the factory and stuff like that. And he was willing to completely share all of that, and that was amazing. Unfortunately, I know no other, and since I call it folded, they sold to another company, so the open source ideals aren't as clear right now. But let's have more of those examples, right? It only takes, people have to basically get involved at the point, okay, here's a meaningful, viable, proven enterprise on important things, not trinkets, just really important, economically significant things that change the economy. That's the thing that's needed.
And I do think lots of people volunteer to be able to make the hardware, be able to make the software, but going the extra step and trying to make a viable open source enterprise based on those, I think, yeah, that's a thing a lot of open source communities do not do. Yeah,
and what
specifically
about OpenWRT? Because if it's actually truly open and that in the distributed enterprise sense, we'll manufacture it. That's what we do. We produce economically important things. Routers are important. We'd love to do it if it were truly that. But yeah, the point being that, yeah, extremely rare. And I cannot name a single one that, even if you add the additional factor of, okay, economically significant, something that's got a highly significant market, near $1 billion. Is there anything else like that outside of OSC? I don't think so. Well, the house itself, that's $1 trillion market. What is the market size of housing? It's about 5 trillion for residential. It's about, I think, 10 trillion or so, including all construction. So that's a significant market. And that's exactly the reason why we chose the house. During COVID, actually, we said, okay, let's do the most important thing that can change people's lives. That's a house. Yeah.
Especially now. For sure.
Yeah.
So
we've got
I guess it's changed that's the case, that only open source ecology is doing that, right?
Yeah. And I think it's going to start. So, for example, we've got the Builder Crash Course coming up December 1 through the 14th. We build a complete house from scratch. Now, in that, there's a couple of VIPs coming. VIPs. I mean, people who are coming explicitly because they want to start a business using this kind of stuff. I was just talking to a guy today. He wants to start a business where he makes homes, affordable homes, using the sweat equity model, using with tradespeople as the target market. But yeah, it's like, cool. Yeah, come to the workshop and learn how to actually build this so you can start a business. So what I see happening right now is, we're getting a little traction. We've got the product. The product is extremely significant. Now we are in a trajectory to grow. That's. Oh, sorry, my video. What happened to my video? Okay, there. We're on a trajectory to do that. So we're definitely inviting people to join that program. And if you want to learn, 18 years old, imagine that. Go to OSC, the apprenticeship, as opposed to college. 22 years, you finish. You can design and build anything. You already got your house. We give that to you. We build it for you. And you collaborate. You help open source all the technology that goes into the house too. Your final project is a collaborative open source product development thing with your entire cohort. Another product release, whether it's going to be a tractor or whatever, the brick press, whichever of the technologies. But that's the name of the game that we play.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Which, I think plays directly into one of my favorite quotes of all time by Henry George: "Let no man feel he has no influence." When you're permitted to contribute to a project that makes a difference in the lives of not only the people who contributed themselves, but everyone else who gets to feel the benefit of it.
Yeah,
that's a beautiful thing. And you have a fantastic project, Marcin. We appreciate you for coming on. We appreciate everything that you do. You've been a great guest. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we do try to keep this at a 45 minutes, but I was enjoying the conversation. I will end the live stream for the benefit of the audience. However, if we want to keep this conversation going, we're more than welcome to. But folks, thank you all for stopping by.
Mention
another episode of Talk the Plank.
So pump the learn.opensourceecology.org. Sign up for the apprenticeship if you want to change your life. And then there's also the Builder Crash Course link if you want to learn how to build your own house by building one in 2 weeks. So that's learn.opensourceecology.org.
Which is in the YouTube description. So you can check that out and click the link and find out more. Saw the 6-step program. It's not a bad deal if you're an 18-year-old kid, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Folks, thank you so much. This has been Talk the Plank, the United States Pirate Party's #1 podcast. We believe the U.S. should be a good neighbor. We believe in cool, clean water, like Hank said. And we believe if purchasing is an ownership, well, then piracy isn't theft.